So real talk, throughout my entire art journey, I've never really bothered learning any human muscles. And yeah, that's kind of wild, considering it's literally one of the basics of anatomy. But like I showed in a previous video, I've always managed to find my way around the problem. Until when it comes to drawing male characters, or more specifically, muscles. There isn't really a way to fake them, so if I want to draw good muscles, I'll actually have to study them. Which is not something I usually do. So in this video, I'll be sharing my journey of learning how to draw muscles, what confused me at the start, and what I picked up along the way, and hopefully come out as a better artist by the end. Just a quick note before we begin that this video isn't a step-by-step tutorial by any means, but a personal study. I'm simply sharing my process and observations, and hopefully something here helps you out too. So without further ado, let's get started. So, where do you even start when studying male anatomy? There are so many muscles to keep track of that I genuinely don't know where to even begin. So I did what every good artist does. I opened up Pinterest and started copying references. And oh boy, a lot of copying I did. And let's just say my first few attempts weren't very promising. But after replicating references more and more, I started to see the patterns. And here's what I found. So I learned that every masculine body shares a few obvious landmarks. We can actually follow some key structures here and there to define a more masculine look. Compared to female anatomy, a masculine male body has thicker neck, larger trap muscles, wider shoulders, defined pec muscles, arm muscles, straighter rectangular waist, as well as visible abs, lat, and oblique muscles. Don't worry, I'm also overwhelmed the first time I see this, but as long as you are able to recognize them, you'll have a much easier time drawing the male body. Next, a quick note for proportions. I noticed the difference is really in their width proportions instead of heights. Height proportions such as elbow aligning with the waist, wrists hitting around the crotch level, and legs are still roughly half the body height. Not much changes there. While width proportions differs more. For males, the shoulder always sit wider than the pelvis, and for females, the shoulder and hips are usually closer in width. Also, something small but helpful that I learned, the belly button usually sits between the third and fourth row of the abs, and the very top row of the abs is almost always the smallest. It's a small but useful tips for those who want to draw a more accurate anatomy. So after copying dozens of references, I felt like I finally understood what defines a male body. But simply recognizing the muscles is one thing, drawing them from scratch is another. So let's try doing exactly that in the next section. So here's the part where I'll show you how I approach drawing the male anatomy. For those who are still unfamiliar with the muscles, it is recommended to draw using some guidelines. I didn't use much in my time-lapse here, but I'll still show you some key features to look out for. First, I always start with the head. Nothing special here, just that male characters would have a jawline that is sharper compared to that of female characters. After that, I blocked in the neck, just slightly narrower than the width of the head. And follow up with a curved line representing trap muscles connecting the neck and shoulders. The collarbone here marks the bottom of the traps, and it also tells me where the shoulders should be attached. Right after that are the shoulders and pecs. One thing that I learned from studying references is that pec muscles are surprisingly big. I tend to draw them about the same height as the head. As for the shoulders, for males, their total width should be around 3 times of the head. The outer edge of the pec should be curved slightly upwards, connecting to the deltoid muscles. Next, I move down to the torso. Here we got the lats, obliques, and the abs. Lat are muscles on the side of the body connecting to the arms. The oblique muscles connect directly into the abs, so I like to draw them as one continuous curved shape instead of separating them. Bonus tip, the ab isn't perfectly symmetrical. They consist of small bumps and curves, so remember to draw those for a more realistic looking body. Finishing off with the arms and a bit of liquefy adjustment. Now for a quick proportion check, make sure that the shoulders are wider than the pelvis. The abdomen would also be much more rectangular shaped compared to females, and if you're drawing the two together, make sure that the male's ribcage is slightly larger and wider. The example I drew here is only facing towards the camera. For more angled poses, the very first thing I usually do is drop a quick center line, one for the head and one for the torso. Then can tell me what direction the body is facing as well as their positions. Another thing I do sometimes is to simplify the torso into a box. I don't draw the boxes fully, but thinking in box logic helps me to understand which way the muscles are facing, where they start and end, as well as how they wrap around the body. But here's the thing most struggled with, including me. Muscles have volumes, which means when the body turns, muscles will start overlapping with each other. This is especially confusing in areas with lots of smaller structures, mainly the abs and pecs. This is why I like to simplify the muscles into simple shapes first. Shapes kind of like a brioche bun. Okay, hear me out. Most muscles have a smooth, curved top surface, like a top of a bun. So imagine lining up 8 little bun shape on top of the torso. You'll get a super simple way to visualize the abs. You can overlap, tilt, and squash them, and you'll immediately show how muscles look in different perspectives. If you're wondering, is this more effective than copying from a photo or 3D model? Well, for intermediate artists who already understood anatomy, probably not. But for learning, simplifying, and understanding muscles, this method works surprisingly well, especially when trying to draw from imagination. Studying muscles all day is pretty tiring, so let's try something fun and test everything that I learned in an actual illustration. This section isn't much of a tutorial, I'm just showing how I draw male characters using the things that I've learned. During this time, I've just finished the entire Star Rail and Furious saga. And I must say, I really liked Finon's story and character, so this felt like the perfect opportunity for me to make a fan art of him. I was inspired by this Finon artwork by Sunset. The composition and lighting focus a lot on the rendering on the pecs, collarbone, and neck muscles. It looks so good that I immediately knew I wanted to try something similar. So I went with a high angle shot, which is great for showing off the torso structure, but also a solid challenge because foreshortening and overlapping forms can get quite tricky. The practices really helped me here more than I thought. Even though I wasn't consciously thinking about guidelines or sketching every muscle, having a mental model of the male anatomy makes it easier for me to keep the forms believable. If you would have asked me to draw Finon before learning these muscles, I don't think the result would be as appealing as this one. After roughing out the pose, I continued with the face, hair, and clothes. I actually widened the shoulders a bit to make him look more masculine, but looking back at this sketch now, I may have gotten a bit too far. The upper body looked massive compared to the legs, but luckily the fix came pretty naturally. I added a coat resting over his shoulders, and it ended up hiding the awkward spaces in between, which actually make the silhouette look more believable. And that's pretty much it for the sketch. And even though this video isn't about rendering muscles, I'll still quickly walk you through my painting process as a bonus segment. I start by painting the background gray and then blocking in all the base colors using the lasso tool. I keep everything on one layer for consistency, and I try not to make the base color too contrasty just yet. After that, I put a multiply layer on top, covering the body in a warm shadow tone, and then erasing parts for the light areas. I like to erase big shapes first, just to understand where the main lighting goes, and then cleaning it up using the lasso tool. Once the main light and shadows were set, I quickly rendered the eyes, then added reflected lights. I just pick a lighter color and paint on the same shadow multiply layer. This also creates a nice core shadow in between the two hues. Here I've also blurred some hard edges to create soft midtones, and after that comes the secondary shadow inside the shadowed area. This is just to create some extra depth to places such as the neck and folds on his shirt. Once all that is done, I move on to the details, adding things such as subtle reds and blues for blood flow, hair highlights, and some subsurface scattering on the skin. I also add a new layer on top for refinements like hair strands, line art, and additional accessories. And finally finishing off with some tone curve color adjustments. And here's the final result. I'm honestly really happy with how this turned out. Finon is arguably one of my favorite characters in Star Rail, so this illustration feels like a nice way to commemorate him. Learning how to draw muscles definitely improved me as an artist. Of course, the muscles here are still far from perfect, but this whole study serves as a solid starting point. At least now I'm able to draw male characters more often without questioning myself about weird anatomy. I hope you managed to pick up something new along the way. This study was really fun to do, but the video took a little too long to make. So again, thank you for sticking around to the end, I really appreciate it.